G'day, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me. So here we are, we've got the Gatekeeper once again on the bench, and today we are looking at the first group of, or batch of 3D printed parts that I have designed to go with the Gatekeeper. That's right, nothing factory today, it's just extra bits. So, as you can see, I've got the car here. Now if I remove it out of the way, this is the second batch of bits you've seen. Put that over there for the mo. Now what we've got here is a slightly out of focus. Okay, so what we've got here is a series of bash plates and other bits and bobs. Now I just want to show you this quickly to show you, like, I've been doing a load of testing on this and I've got a lot of advice on, well, not a lot of advice, but some advice on how to print it all. So we'll get to that in a mo, but first I just want to run through the bits that I've made. Now, first things first, and probably one of the, I imagine to be more commonly printed pieces, is going to be this puppy right here. Now this is a TPU, nice and flexible as you can see. Battery mount, basically. It mounts to the front mounting points that come with the hardware on the chassis of the vehicle, and it's got a space for a strap to go in it. It will match into the framing of the body quite tightly on the sides, and should prevent splash from the front wheels coming up and into that central area, at least from the bottom. If you go too hard, you can always get them in the top if you're not running the top cockpit plate like I am. I am not. From there, you can see also that I have a winch spool that's not painted, and a painted winch mount. Now, that winch spool, I've been through a few iterations, and in my defense, it wasn't really like poor design as much as trying to push the materials as much as possible. I wanted to keep the diameter of the inner diameter of the spool as small as possible in order to maximize the torque that could be applied to the cable by the servo. Now, I had to actually thicken that, do some chamfering, and ended up thickening it up a bit. And I have also run a two-line system which I've kept on this thing, so that's with the pulley block there, and that doubles the strength of the servo, but and mitigates some of the loss of torque by increasing the diameter that your cable is winding around. So for those who aren't aware, your winch only applies its rated force when it's down to basically the spool, when you're down to that initial layer of cable on the spool. And as you go out, you can apply less force with it because there's a greater lever that the winch has to, maneuver. It's just how the gearing works. That's why if you've got a really long cable on your spool, you will run this kind of setup just to sort of mitigate that loss of torque. Anyway, so that's that. That is actually a two-piece part and requires this, let me move this into position for you. Okay, so I'm holding the car up, excuse me. So here you can see this part is what guides the cable onto the spool, and that has two screws that come up through and in to support it so that it's nice and strong. Pretty well that's all that's keeping that on there, and it's working very well. There's no brass threading or anything like that. It's just straight up plastic. One of the things you'll have to watch with this winch mount is having the side mounting, see these here, as tight as possible. This side has slipped up compared to this side, and I've been doing my test pulls. Otherwise, apart from that, it slipped up, but it didn't fail or anything like that. The spool. Now, the spool may break in the center, but keep functioning because it's held together by the screw. But that's not, I'll put this down. But yeah, like, I'm not going to guarantee that if you take it off, you'll be able to put it back on. This one has survived so far and hasn't broken. So that's the latest one that's going to come out with the files. But if anyone does have a lot of problems with breaking, and if I have a lot of problems with it breaking, I will be updating that. So if you see a version 2 of that, print it. In fact, if you see a version 2 of anything, like if there's a version 1 and a version 2, probably the version 2 has fixed up something and I've had to update either the files on Thingiverse or in my Google Drive. Apart from that, we really do have one other major piece for this batch. And that, well actually sorry, moron moment. We have 2 other pieces for this batch. Okay, well there you go. Managed to get them both in focus. Now here we have the nose bash plate. That is to cover the servo, which if I push down there, it's got that much flex. You can see there's a little bit of flex, but that's to protect that servo from, you know, any hard hits. And same here. Now this here is PLA, and you could do that in TPU. So I can bring this board back over here, and we'll get to that in a moment. This is a diff guard that snaps on. So as you can see here, it's poorly printed, but it leaves a gap for this bracing across the top of the diff, the axle, but you can snap it over, and if you get it to print properly and don't have a dud like this one, yeah, it works quite well. If you do have a dud like this one, it'll still go on, but this is the rear. It does want to sort of pull itself off quite easily because these back pieces are weak. The front hasn't come off, and that's a better print. However, I do think that this lower lip could do with some modification in a future iteration. It's all right for the front now, and I haven't pulled it off for doing any reversing or anything, but I have done that for the rear, and I think that's a combination of the looser clipping and this sitting too low when it's attached. So I may do another iteration of this. I'm definitely going to do another one for the back where this curves up. But I'm going to release this one for now for the front because that's where you're going to hit first, right? And that's pretty well it. That's the parts. Now let me talk about printing the parts a little bit, because that's somewhat finicky. I have a bad habit of designing my parts in the orientation of how I would like the end design to fit, not how I want it to print. I design the parts to print, like, you know, so they're not impossible to print, but it's just easier for working with the mind map I have of the whole project sort of thing, right? That's why I do it. I'm self-taught, I'm not a professional. So here we are. Just want to quickly go through the prototyping for the diff. As you can see, I've done it in PLA. You can do it in PLA, but you have to be very careful to leave nicks to go on. I just do this in a PTU and move on with it. And it works very well in PTU. The majority of everything else, apart from obviously that battery plate, which you can see here has a nice fit there. You can do in PLA. I would do that in TPU as well, but you could do it in PLA if you wanted. You might just have to trim this back a bit more. But it's designed to press up against it and try to form a seal. The nose bash plate you could do in TPU, but you know, there is somewhat of a very tight. I want it to be as, like, you know, have this nice and thin and leave a nice, have it fit, and I left a little bit too much space. So if you get a hit here, it will bend, but it is quite paintable and usable and extremely tough. So yeah. One final thing that you will notice on this that you won't see on the final product that I released, the released STL. For this piece, the nose bash plate, I didn't allow enough. There's two on the receiving side of it, the stock piece, this grey bit. There's two cylinders that poke out to receive these screws for whatever reason. They're meant to be there for stock reasons, and I didn't recede enough of a gap, you know, a recess for those in this particular part. I have redesigned that, and that is drying here. But yeah, I don't have it on there for this. Now, for printing this particular piece, you want to print it this way up, and you want to print it with support. This is important because, let me get this all out of the way and fix up for you, and I'll explain why. So this one in particular is important. This sticky thing just will not end up in the bin. Go away. So, okay, let me start from the beginning. This one is particularly a finicky little one to print. If you print it like this, you're going to have a lot of trouble separating out these very shallow recesses here that go along there. These may not print very nicely in there, and you're going to have to clean all this area out. It's very thin and easily damageable, even as PLA. But if you print it like this, now this is probably just my printer, but I imagine that others out there may have a similar problem. If you know how to solve this problem, please let me know, because I haven't actually, as far as I can remember, come across this specific issue. Okay, so what happens is it prints up and then it gets to this gap. And because in this, the settings here, I had no support, you can see how it's, you got the port bridging there. I've just got the stock bridging settings. I probably could adjust them. I should adjust them. But it has resulted in this very odd under extrusion through this area. And that's something to do with the retraction or whatnot. Now here I have one that is printed in the same way with no support. And yeah, so that's just a failure. And here's one earlier. Now the one over there I printed with support, and that support went up. Wow, that really shattered, didn't it? Went up in there, so it was up like that, and that seemed to stop that under extrusion. So, you know, if you have that problem while you print it, there you go. That's how you fix that. As for everything else, the main battery plate I printed with the largest side flat to the bed and used support for it. This bad boy, if I recall, is printed this way up. So the plate to front or rear of the vehicle, the outside plate, down. The spool, this is the base of the spool. There's the top of this particular spool, I think, is printed this way up. And there's a bonus that I'll include in this, and I'll have to add on to the other GT5 video probably in the description. This is a channel 4 gear stick switch for the GT5 to help with to help with winch operation. I found the native one was way too small, and this is a lot easier to function. Very clumsy. I haven't had much sleep. My health isn't doing too well at the moment. Probably going to be having an operation over Christmas. Enjoy. Yeah, I'm just a little below normal operation capacity. Look, there you go. That's all I can think of for now. Let's go and check out this thing doing some climbs with the winch, and if there's any final thoughts I have, I'll chuck them in at the end of the video. Okay, so here we are at the creek. Now over there is the bridge behind these lilies. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of Australian bush tucker knowledge. Those yellow and white flowers on the vine that's on the tree over that way, they're called honeysuckle. You can actually pull them off, pull the bottom off, suck the nectar out, and it's a really nice sweet little drink. Bloody bonza. Anyway, let's get into the RC. I'll go show you the descent and the climb. Okay, so this is the climb, descent and climb we're going to do today. As you can see, concrete down there, it's very steep, the camera doesn't give it. But the outside, of course, it's very loose getting up that, and gonna have to winch. Let's get into it. Okay, just so you can see how big that is, there's my hand, there is the spider. My hand, spider. That's a wolf spider, if you're wondering. They're roaming hunters. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without showing you the vertical climb. So, here we are. Nice little vertical climb with a reasonable edge, not too harsh. I'm going to try to come up here and take this nice smooth bit. Let's get it set up and get into it. Okay, so talking about 3D printed parts for the future, quickly before we end. There are a few that I'm going to be doing. We'll start on the top here. So this box here, it'd be nice to be able to actually carry something in this box, preferably, you know, your little winch setup or something like that, so you can put that right away if you want to, and then have that in a box at the back. So I'm going to make a piece that sort of goes on there and has another hinge at the back, and you can open it up probably this way and put stuff in there. Whether it's a screw down lid or a clip down lid, I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I have been working on a nice method of making scale hitches, trying to figure something out. Quick flash. So we're going to look at that probably in a separate video, but there will be a piece going into the back of this to mount, to take the receiver. Now, what else we got underneath? So under here you can see there's a lot of abrasion marks, primarily here, 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 and here. Now I think what I'm going to do is a set of rock sliders, sorry if the mic's a bit loud here, down here and here, and some sort of clip over covers onto these pieces, onto these arms. I'll probably try to make these rock sliding bars high enough that it misses this knuckle, comes across and hands over to the rear. And then if you're going to scrape, you have the rear protection in place. And I think that, unless I think of anything else in the meantime, which I could do, it could do actually with a couple of strips, like here and here, and maybe even some strips along the top, and I mean literally just strips of plastic, a couple of mil thick, not even. There are some points that you can see the paint's worn off it. So if I was to go over the body, I've got paint gone here, here. And surprisingly, I seem to like rolling it on this side. It's weird because we drive on the right here. Anyway, that is weird. I never thought about that. Never noticed it. Anyway, whatever. Let's move on. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the parts. If you print these off and you have any problems with them, please hit me up. You may find that I don't get on Thingiverse that often to read the comments or anything, because Thingiverse is horrible. But hit me up on Discord. You can find the links down in my DM in the descriptions of all my videos, and you can also find my gaming channel down there if you're interested in wasting a few hours in a less constructive fashion. I'd love to see some of you there in the comments section. What else can I think of to mention in this? You want to have your infield fairly high on all of these parts. Pretty well. Rock and roll, have fun. Winch cable. Tip for a winch cable. All right? 550 cord. You get yourself 3 meters of that, and you have 5 3-meter long winch cables. That's like all the winch cable you ever need. Unless you're truly in there and mocking that shit up. But you have to be careful on the winch cable note. So, I'm using the inside of 550 cord, just one of the strands. I do have a setup on this thing behind me that has 3 strands in a plaited arrangement. That's a lot stronger, a lot more redundant. The cord is susceptible to abrasion damage. Treat it like you would treat the flexible synthetic winch ropes that you get for proper winches. Don't treat it like a steel cable. It will abrade, and at one point you're going to have a failure. Don't forget you've got about 50 pounds of braking strength on that. So yeah, for every strand that you cut, that drops. And at some point it drops significantly. I'm not a rope engineer, but yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a lot of fun. Please, if you go out there and make these and use them for something, please let me see pictures and videos. I would really love to see that. That kind of stuff makes me feel like I've contributed, like in a real way. And I love that, and I love the feedback. Anyway, I want to enjoy my coffee, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace out, be well. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And yeah, rock on. Come out with in the future. Now, I've already mentioned... Dum 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 dum. Dum 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 dum. Dum dum dum. And you'd be surprised, but you never really get bugs in them. Quite nice. If you go through enough of them, you get a good little sugar boost. Good food.